Powered by Go Sports and in partnership with TSN, this is Season 3. It is episode 29 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. Second podcast of the week, Ray, which is aggressive for us, right? I mean, we like to let things ferment a little bit over the course of the week.
Sure.
You know? And then we respond, we react, maybe we bring in a guest that somehow links it all together, or we go down the path of the alumni, as we often do, and have fun there. But yeah, it just feels like now we're in the final 10 games of the regular season. There's a lot
or
to
if
chew
I
on
could be
for us.
honest, our schedules suck. And so we're like, we got to get a second one in here, except there's lots going on. And it's crazy how from the start of the week to late in the week, how the standings look different. Even if they're not much different.
I know.
You start looking at other teams and other possibilities, and there's going to be some good stuff between now and the end of the year.
You know, we'll get to Ask Ray and Dregs later, as we always do, a popular segment on the podcast. But one of the questions that jumped out at me, which I'll just throw out there now, do we miss cheering for teams? And instantly I'm like, not really. But this time of year, when teams are battling for a playoff spot, you know, like I look at Vancouver, and I'm not suggesting you're going to say Vancouver because of Cammy's attachment now, employment with the Canucks. But everything that went on around the Vancouver Canucks early in the year, they make aggressive moves, they rebuild hockey operations, the team responds, all of that, and they're in the playoff mix. It feels unlikely. I would cheer for a scenario, a situation,
right,
because of hard work, right? So that's why I use Vancouver as an example. But do you miss that at all?
You know what? My first thought right away is no. Except as you were talking, I was thinking about, like, I've been a Boston Red Sox fan since 1975. And they win the World Series in 2004. And I remember very clearly that run from 2004. So they're down 3-0 against the Yankees, 3-0. Cammy and I are eating sushi in a restaurant. I look up and they're losing the game. And I'm like, man, they're going to get swept. So we finish eating. I get home. The game's in extra innings. I don't know about Dave Roberts' stolen base that kept the rally alive. We just get there for Ortiz's home run. And oh my gosh, Dregs, I can't tell you how pumped I was to cheer for the Red Sox for 3 weeks again, because they'd already lost. It was over. So I say no, but for a team that I was really cheering for, it was so much fun.
Yeah. And I think it's different, though, when you're looking outside of the sport, right? You know,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I cheer for NFL teams, all of that. But
do you know who I hope wins the Stanley Cup? Nobody.
The team that wins the first 4 games.
Yeah, nobody. I hope nobody wins. Because if I can't win, I don't want anyone else to win.
Yeah. Well, look, you've been part of the posse that has traveled historically at TSN through the Stanley Cup final. Collectively, we have this inside joke, which is no longer inside. We start cheering for the team that wins the first game of the best of 7.
See,
because you want to get home. You want to get on with your summer.
The key to any series is game 3. Assuming it's a split in the first 2, you're like, game 3 holds the cards. I will never forget when Anaheim was playing New Jersey. Game 6 was in Anaheim. And Anaheim went up 3-0 or something in game 6. And I remember in the auxiliary press box, writers like, they were just exhausted. They thought this could be it. Now we had to go all the way back, and there's a day off all the way back to Jersey. And you kind of knew that Jersey was going to win anyway. And you're like,
yeah.
That was painful. That was a tough
I remember something similar. I think it was Dallas, New Jersey, a million years ago, and
you know the other one.
Maybe it was the Arnott overtime.
Edmonton, Carolina.
Yeah. That one was a kick right to the midsection.
Yeah. Edmonton won game 6, and we had to. I don't know what the hell we were doing, but we had to charter out of Edmonton to Carolina. We got to Carolina at like 5 a.m. Everybody was tired and grumpy, and Oh, it was hard travel, man. And nobody cares. Just write the story, report on it. Like, that's our job. Shut
Oh,
up
I
and
know.
just do the thing. The guys had to play another game, you know.
All right. Well, I have to find the person who submitted that question just out of respect. It was actually from David on Instagram. So thank you for that, David. Not only do you get a plug from Astray and Dregs anything, but basically get the top of episode 29. Headlines presented by our friends at Boston Pizza, the place to watch hockey on Saturday nights, really anytime. Great food, great drinks, great prizes to be won. So check it out, all at your local Boston Pizza. Headlines, we're going to kind of bounce all over the place, right?
Right.
But let's start. You know, as you said earlier, we're looking at how the standings are changing game by game, day by day. But one of the most consistent teams all year has been the Colorado Avalanche, and you know this isn't significant to the Avs more so than St. Louis, maybe Minnesota. I guess I was just a bit surprised when I read this morning Colorado Avalanche, Ray, have 7 20-plus goal scorers. And,
Right.
you know, how many of those goal scorers are in the 20 to 30-plus range? Like,
Yeah.
basically all of them, right? So, I mean, 720-plus goal scorers gives you a pretty good read on how potent and powerful, and obviously how talented, good the Colorado Avalanche are.
Well, so they got the 720s, 20 plus goal scores. Nechoskien gets to 20 last night. So he's a kind of an interesting guy. I'll spend a second on him. Is like, you know, at
Yeah,
one
yeah.
point, Val Nechoskien was the 10th overall pick. I remember him at the World Juniors. He was just this big, straight ahead bull, too strong for everybody, didn't have much vision, and got to Dallas. He thought he would do better, thought he would play more. It didn't work. He went
Right.
back home. They traded him to Colorado. Now he's 27. And I guess my point to that little meandering thing is that teams can't wait a long time. They've got to move on because they got new draft picks coming. They've got only so many contracts that they can have. And you often get disappointed with the people that are closest to you on your roster. And you like somebody else from another team better. Sometimes it's just better to hang on. Now, maybe you couldn't have hung on for 7 years with Nechoskien. Maybe Dallas shouldn't have
Yeah.
taken him at 18 or 19, but he's a legit player. Here's the other thing about Colorado. So Kadri's out, Landeskog's out. They scored 9
Yeah.
goals last night against a very stingy LA team. So put them back in the lineup. They've added Bowen Byram again, and I really hope that Bowen Byram is healthy because he's had a long road over the last year and a half or so. But man, they've got Gerard back. That team is loaded.
Oh,
And
boy.
they're if you so like say you shut down McKinnon. Well, now you got Kadri's line. And now you got Nechoskien playing on a third line that's got another 20 goals. And they get 26 goals from Makar, and Devon Taves I think Devon Taves is one of the most underrated players in the league. Terrific player. Now they add Gerard. Now they add Byram. And they win the sweepstakes for this college free agent, Ben Myers, who most people think is NHL ready to be a mid-6 forward, not a top guy, but a mid-6 forward. Signs a 2-year deal. So you can go through the contract part, but another coup for Colorado, more depth for their lineup.
Yeah, I mean, he signs the entry-level contract with the Colorado Avalanche, much to the disappointment of the Minnesota Wild, the Detroit Red Wings, and many, many, many other clubs.
He was in Minnesota's facility. Sorry, he was in Minnesota's facility Tuesday. Like they were giving him the last pitch, and Billy Guerin was pulling out all the stops about,
of course he was,
what they're billing there, and and Minnesota's a really good team, and he's a hometown kid, but the Avs they found a way. Yep.
They did, and I want you to take us through that as a player. Now, the entry-level contract is what it is, right? He'll burn off one of the 2 years this season if he plays in the regular season, and I'm sure he will. and that'll qualify him. He'll waltz into the playoffs, and we'll see how impactful he can be with the inexperience level. But he's a really, really, really good player. So when you look at all of the interest across the league, including your home state team, the Minnesota Wild, it has to just boil down to, all right, I'm looking organizationally and I'm seeing that, well, what's going to happen with Nazem Kadri? What's going to happen here? What's going to happen there? And then you're looking at Minnesota and you're doing the same forensic audit organizationally, and you're doing the same in Detroit. And you're doing the same here and there. That's what it breaks down to, right? It comes down to a balance rate of opportunity and business. And those two things always work hand in hand.
Well, they do. I think that's where it gets confusing a little bit, where you can overthink it. If I'm looking at that, because the offer is going to be the same for Ben Myers, a player like Ben Myers is getting the same offer from Detroit, from Minnesota, from Colorado. 2-year entry-level deal, burn off the first year. Now you got 1 year of runway before you become a free agent again. So if I'm him, I'm looking at the opportunity that I'm going to get on a team. Now, I don't really want to go to a team that's so good there's no space for me, and you've got to sit there and wait your turn. Like, I don't want that. I want to be able to play. I want to be able to play in the playoffs, and I want to know that next year, the opportunity that you see for me is one that I like.
Agreed.
Like, if I'm looking at, like, it's almost like when these kids go to junior and the junior coaches say, oh, you're going to be on the power play. Then you get to training camp and you find out they've promised 14 guys they're going to be on the power play. Like, he can't go to Dean Evison in Minnesota or Jared Bednar in Colorado and say, whose line am I going to play on? Because so much can change from now to then. But you've got to have a pretty good understanding of what they see for you. And then, Dregs, more than the business and all that, it's got to come down to your gut feel. Like, okay, where do I see myself best suited? And then it's just because you're going to take that step. I'm glad he made his decision, because the longer he took, the worse it was going to get. You start gobbling up yourself.
We'll move on, but I do feel like this is an area in the CBA that they're going to have to address in the future.
100%. It's not right. Distant. It's not fair. And it's not fair. And the European free agents come over. They've got one set of rules. The college free agents have another. The juniors have another. And I know they're looking for some equality in all of it, but what they got now is not right.
It's not. And maybe this year more than ever, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, that's what social media is all about. But because of the examples that we've seen this year, right? The drafted players, McBain, Smith, who just flat out refuse. I'm not signing with Winnipeg. I'm not signing with Minnesota. And by the way, I know I'm a free agent. I'm not signing there. I want to go there. So you force the team into trading you to the place you need to go. I would feel as a young player that would put a tremendous amount of pressure on me going into that environment. Right? Like, there's got to be some vets in Arizona looking at some of these kids and going, really? So it's multifaceted, but it is an area that, excuse me, will get corrected or addressed in the future. I want to say near future, but I'm not convinced of that.
Yeah.
Shift over to the East. New York Rangers. They getting enough respect, Trey?
No, they're not. First part of the year was, Igor Shesterkin was stopping the puck 94% of the time. And so no matter what they did,
it's not bad.
It was like, but the goalie's stopping the puck 94% of the time. And I know that's a fact because that's what I was saying. I don't know what the hell everybody else was saying, but I was saying that. So I think they're ahead of where they thought they were going to be. Like, I think this year's a little bit of a surprise for them. They bring in a new coach in Gerard Gallant. They're really young. Like, if you look at the defense of the New York Rangers and write their ages down, you're going to be really surprised.
Yeah.
That's a very young group. Then up front, I know Alexi Lafreniere got scratched last night, but him and Capo Caco, they're 20 years old.
I
Like
know.
they're very
I have
young.
no idea what's coming of them. Yeah.
And so it's all fit. They're exciting. They're good. They made some really good moves at the deadline. Like Andrew Kopp's the right type of player that they needed to add.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
they were. I would say they were a little too light, little too much rushy. Like off the rush only. Now they've changed that a little
Yeah.
bit, but they've also gotten so college free agent thing through that bouncing ball. They got Adam Fox. He pairs really
Yeah.
well on the blue line with Lindgren, who they got from Boston in a trade. But that's a really young pair. Keandre Miller has taken an enormous step this year. This guy is a
Hmm.
monster on the ice, and he's just 20 or 21. Then their first rounder from a year and a half ago, Braden Schneider, he pops into the deal, and they're like, oh my God, they call him Baby Trouba. And so they've got Jacob Trouba and him. Then they add a veteran and Justin Braun. Like that's a good team. It's a I
Yeah.
They beat Pittsburgh 3 times in a row. If the playoffs started today, and I hate that term because they don't start today, Drake. So this is nonsense. They would play Pittsburgh, and they've just beat them 3 times in a row.
Yeah. I just, of course they're a contending team. Every team that qualifies for the playoffs is a contending team. But, we spent a lot of time looking at Tampa Bay and Florida and Toronto. You can't disrespect Boston. You just mentioned Pittsburgh. Carolina, of course. I don't know. There is, and you've just given us the hockey perspective of why we shouldn't sleep on the New York Rangers. But there is a lot to like about this team, and it
Right.
wouldn't surprise me at all if they kick some people around in the Eastern Conference
Well,
postseason.
here's the other thing about the East. Who is scared of anybody else?
No,
I think
no
teams
one,
in the
no
West
one.
are terrified of Colorado. Nobody wants to play Colorado. I don't think there's
Yeah,
anybody in the East like that. And so I think everybody feels like if we get there, we've got a chance. Look, I'm doing the Toronto Washington game today. I was in Pittsburgh on Saturday for Washington. They're good. They're really good. They're
Oh
big
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're mean. Their goaltending makes me wonder. I mean, anytime you get this time of the year and the coach says, I don't know who my starter is, that's probably a problem. And that's where they are with Vitasek and Samsonov. So, but they're good. And I don't think any team is going to say, oh, good, we got Washington in the first round. But the Rangers are an interesting group, and the league is better when the Rangers are good. It brings more eyeballs to the sport.
Absolutely.
And so I'm glad to see they're in, and we'll see where they end up finishing up here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's shift over to the West because, and we talked about Colorado, but it's still an entertaining dog's breakfast and trying to nail
Yes.
down, those final playoff spots in the West, as we know. And even though we're recording this on Thursday morning, I mean, it's going to change day by day, probably right up to game 82. Vegas has games in hand.
Well,
They're
they got
creative,
games,
right? They have to be.
but they're in bad shape in the wild card. I think their place is the 3-hole in the Pacific. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
they've got 2 games in hand on Los Angeles. They're now 3 points behind them after LA got clobbered last night. LA's now in a bit of a rut here. They got 1 win in 5 games.
They're
They've
teetering.
it feels like, oh boy, they're just hanging on a little bit here. But Vegas is, they've got Pacioretty back, they've got Stone back, and to see how those guys can play, after being out so long, they had to jam 3 guys on long-term injury reserve, and they were all injured, so it's not illegal, but it's just,
No.
there's not a lot of good feel-good stories around Vegas right now, I would say, but man, they're there. I mean, they're not the old Monty Python, I'm not dead yet. They're right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say if if I were to look at this now, I think Vegas is going to catch LA. I think it's going to come right down to the very end weekend for Vegas and LA. I think Nashville and Dallas are going to make it, although Nashville has got a hellacious schedule coming in. Mm-hmm. But I think Dallas, I watched Dallas and Tampa the other night. Well, I did the game, and there was not enough coffee to get you to the end of that game. Like nothing happened for 55 minutes.
Yeah.
But Dallas played their asses off. That's their check. Tampa had nothing. They had nothing in the game. But I think Dallas is going to make it. I think Nashville's going to make it. I think it comes to Vegas and LA.
Yeah, and somebody that we're fond of, Daryl Sutter, head coach of the Calgary Flames, just because of who Daryl is, and he's just brutally honest, but is masterful at playing the media too, right? So he made a comment yesterday, day before, about Vegas, and oh geez, they get healthy, look out, they're a Stanley Cup favorite team. There's no question about that. And he started to talk a little bit about the money in the postseason, why it doesn't matter, and all of that. But I actually felt like that comment about Vegas was more sincere than his constant reminding, last month of how you don't want to play Colorado. That's a waste of 8 days. But you can see it. I mean, that's exactly why the Vegas Golden Knights are built the way they're built. So if they get to a point of health, and they're getting there inch by inch, is that the next closest rival clearly to the Colorado Avalanche?
I don't know. I don't know if I can go that far, but
okay. There's something missing, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to get a feel for what the heck they're going to be. Like, they went out. This is the one thing that keeps sticking with me in Vegas. They went out and they get Eichel, they get Pietrangelo, they get Stone, they get Pacioretty. They make the deal in goal, so they got Leonard. And I don't know what Vegas is. Like, with good teams, you can identify what their style is, what their identity is. Vegas has nothing, in my opinion. I don't know what they are. And I don't know how anybody could. Like, what is the culture they've built there? The culture has been successful, but what is it? It's kind of like Vegas, the city. What is it? And the team kind of fits in that because they've gone and plucked all these great players. Can they be a team? They haven't even had a chance to find out yet.
Interesting. All right, well, let's wrap up headlines with, we're going to have some fun with it. The league wasn't impressed in the moment, heat of the moment. Evander Kane, Hartman, maybe not impressed with each other. But Ryan Hartman gets a $4,250 fine for flipping the bird, right? And then, there was an exchange, of course, where, Evander Kane was in there with 4 or 5 Minnesota Wild players. And Hartman, after the game, said nobody came there to defend him. That whole sequence, that how it played out, I found amusing. Evander Kane gave his take post-game. Hartman gave his take post-game. I think it's an overreaction by the National Hockey League to fine the guy $4,000 plus for flipping the bird. We've got mics in every telecast, right? Yeah. We hear stuff all the time. Flipping the bird all of a sudden now is worthy of $4,200. Anyway, just your assessment of all of that.
Well, I think that fine was necessary in 1983 because nobody heard anything, nobody saw anything, and it looks bad. If you're watching the game, you're watching Hartman and Kane tell each other to go F themselves. Like, if you can read lips, which we all can, like, they're literally, like, you can read it. And then because he flips the bird, which your 10-year-old does, to his friends on the schoolyard, like, who cares? The best part is the fans set up a Venmo and paid off his fine. which Hartman's going to
I
donate to
know.
charity, which is awesome. But like, so I'm looking at that scuffle, and so the Wild are a tough team, by the way. They are tough, but they got 5 Nats on the ice at this time, and Kane swatting them aside. Kaprizov and Hartman and Zuccarello, it's all their small guys, and he's like whack, 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 and then I don't know, like Hartman does not want to fight Evander Kane. I mean, he might want to, he shouldn't want to, but
no,
the back and forth, whether the league thinks so or not, it's good for the league. It really is.
I agree.
I didn't have a problem with it at all. When I heard about it, I was waiting for, they'd say, Wild and Edmonton brawl, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm like, oh, for the love of it.
Yeah.
I
mean, again, not to defend I did too, and not to defend the NHL, but I guess because Hartman was being detained by the linesman, and he's still carrying on with shenanigans and whatnot, was enough to slap him on the wrist with a fine. But anyway, I just love the fact that it gives us something to talk about, but you've got guys who aren't afraid to talk about that after the game either, right? Like, for Hartman to throw it out there, low-hanging fruit, and to say, look, he's got no friends with the Oilers. Nobody was there to defend him. I mean, that's something you would say back in the day, right?
Of course.
I mean, you'd play that card. Why wouldn't you?
And here's the other thing. Now we're inside of 10 games, and you can't touch it, but you can feel it. And once you get inside of 10 games, you start seeing single games in the column to go. Everybody's temperature goes up. The games get different. And
playoff atmosphere, right?
That to me is an example of it.
Loved it. I loved it. Ray, our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to you by our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who are asking, are you over beer? Why not try a refresh? I don't know why I always do that. Are you over beer?
I don't know. You seem to like it that way.
Are you over beer? I do. I'm going to have to work on it. That's going to be the homework assignment for the Easter weekend. Why not try a refreshing CC ginger ale with lime next time you're having a drink? Maybe you're watching a game, doing both. And Ray, how about this? CC and ginger ale already mixed, pre-mixed in a can, and it is now available in many provinces, not all, working on it across Canada. Now, you and I have had the opportunity to crack one of these bad boys open, and, I find it cheating, but that's okay. Sometimes you like to cheat. If I'm
going to tell you a quick story about that, Dregs.
Yeah. Okay, I want to hear.
I'm going to tell you about that. It is cheating, but if you can't mix a drink like me, it's not cheating. It's delicious. It's fantastic. So last summer we got those cans. You remember that?
I do.
Do you remember that? Yeah, right. So Landon comes over for a visit. And then I don't have any. I'm like, where did those go? And he's like, well, maybe I took 2 on the way out the door.
Ooh.
And so he didn't think I was going to check back, but it was a hot day and I wanted one and there was none there.
Oh boy. There you go. It's kind of like your hotel points, air miles, and now the CC and ginger in a can. You're going to have to create some boundaries, brother.
You're going to have to tape the fridge.
And Landon also talked about, did he not, making sure that you saved at least some of the 44-year-old. So
yes, he did. But his older brother, Matt, has been wandering over from time to time to say, right? What's up in the cupboard? Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we've been working on it.
If you're going to share, my friend, you're going to share. You share the good stuff. I'm a 44-year-old. There is nothing better. And the good news is its release is basically available everywhere now as well. All right, it seems like it's been a long time since we visited with our good friend Chris Abbott from Coolbet.co. I don't know what happened earlier this week. We were all lined up. Episode 28 was in good shape. We were looking forward to chatting with Chris Abbott. There were so many things we needed to discuss. And he loses his voice. What happened, buddy?
I wonder why.
I did. Well, I mean, I think the truth of it is that I just haven't gotten over this COVID thing yet. Still battling some symptoms. But I'm going to say it's been screaming and yelling at the Toronto Blue Jays and the Buffalo Sabres, who have kept me also away from the camera because I've been busy at the bank. I've been busy making deposits thanks to these guys. Yeah, no, I tell you, the Jays have been a lot of fun. The Sabres, listen, if you're not following my Sabres train right now, then I can't do anything more for you, because these guys have been underrated, undervalued, and they just keep coming through, especially the top line. So, yeah, man, Buffalo Sabres, here we go.
Okay, Kris, so that's an interesting point. So, like, do a lot of people get stuck kind of focused in on 4 or 5 or 6 teams and sort of forget the rest of the league? Like, I'm doing this baseball thing where you pick a hitter each day, and I'm like, the value is in the guys that nobody thinks about. It, like, there's some guy on a heater that you don't ever normally think about. He plays for Milwaukee or for San Diego, and you don't think about it. Do people lose the value because they don't look wide enough?
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. I mean, it's hard, especially in baseball, right? With all the teams and all the games to keep track of it all. And most people do focus in on their team or the division that their team plays in. But yeah, you're right. You know, maybe there's a guy in Milwaukee, maybe there's somebody for the Arizona Diamondbacks who, you know, their prop to get a hit is really valuable. And that's the same thing that we're running into with I can't believe still Tage Thompson, but more specifically Jeff Skinner. And part of that is too, they're such huge underdogs in the game, which means that if they're massive underdogs, they're not expected to score many goals. And then who is going to score those goals? And then the odds, move concurrently. So it's it's been quite the ride. I presume it'll change at some point.
Well, I mean, I'm looking yesterday. The Blue Jays are playing. Vladdy is 0 for his previous 10. He's going to get a hit. It's up. So would you not just bump onto the back of that? Then he hits 3 balls to the moon, and you're like, well, okay. So it kind of seems obvious, but it's only after the fact it seems obvious. But that's the odds, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, guys are due, right? And you can get yourself in a lot of trouble saying, well, this guy is due. He's due to score. He's due to hit a home run. But actually, a friend of mine, he texted me last night after Vladdy hits the home run. He goes, I parlayed Vladdy and Judge to hit home runs.
I saw that.
Judge hasn't gone long. And he was in Newfoundland. So when Judge hit the home run, he's already in bed. He's a teacher. So I just write him, boom, a big text. And he woke up this morning and he was pretty happy.
And he's happy. Now, you talk about the odds, though, Kris. Oh, go ahead, Dregs. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ray.
Oh, I was just going to say,
back to Calgary.
We were just going to I was just going to flip over with the odds, and now the Stanley Cup's close, and the champion, Stanley Cup championship odds are out, and of course Colorado's the favorite as they should be, but there's some sneaky good picks around there, isn't there?
I think so. I tell you, first of all, I think what's surprising to me, and it's not because of how they played, but Calgary is third on the list. So it's Colorado, Florida, 1-2 at plus 400, plus 575. I think Calgary is third at plus 750. And, we've talked about it time and time again on here about how, the Leafs, even though they are good, they still get overvalued in the betting market. And to see another Canadian team on top of them really has me thinking like, okay, well, the betting markets really do think that's something special going on here in Calgary. And then you have like a litany of Eastern Conference teams after that: Tampa, Toronto, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Boston. And hanging out at 23-1 is the Minnesota Wild. And Ray, this goes back to what you were talking about, teams that people just don't really follow. For whatever reason, it seems to me anyhow, that the Minnesota Wild are just all a team that's there. Like if somebody, and this is no disrespect to the Minnesota Wild, but if somebody asks you, to name all the teams in the NHL, you might be pretty far down the list before you go, oh yeah, Minnesota. So I think they've been a little bit forgotten here. I think at 23-1 and watching this team play, that's a great bet right now to get in on them. They might be 23-1 on the Stanley Cup list, but they're the third in the Western Conference. And as we know, anything can happen in the playoffs.
How'd the Masters weekend work out on the betting front? I mean, there were so many eyeballs, obviously, as soon as Tiger announces he's coming in and then Tiger makes the cut. I mean, the ratings were through the roof, but did that reflect in the books? Yeah,
I mean, people love betting golf, especially in Canada. Our counterparts in the U.S. will ask me, is March Madness big there? Is golf betting big there? I'm like, yes, absolutely it is. Just ask Ray Ferraro how big golf is here. I mean, catch him on the golf course from now until Halloween. But the the Masters was great. I actually got an email Saturday morning that said, "Oh, Tiger making the cut cost us a lot of money," because that was about an even money bet. And
Interesting.
a lot of people got in on that. But then, a lot of people had Scotty Scheffler coming into the event, which means, there wasn't a whole lot to be lost on him. He was one of the favorites. So it was good, man. It's exciting. People love betting through the rounds, after the round, during the round. So all the big golf majors are real big events on the sports betting calendar for sure.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Well, glad to have you back online. Not that you're ever offline, social media, etc., doing what you do day by day, but you sound like $1 million, $1 million plus, because of the money you're winning off the Buffalo Sabres. Thanks, Kris.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Ask Ray and Dregs anything. We started the podcast talking about teams that we cheer for, if any, and we both agree inside hockey we don't. But you can fire your questions to us on Twitter, Instagram at Ray and Dregs, or on the website, rayandregs.com. We talked about Edmonton a little bit. Our good friend Chris Abbott was talking about the Calgary Flames. Ron Arnst tweets at us, Ray. Now, I believe this is Ron Arnst. Well, he's from Manitoba. This I know. I believe it's the same guy that I had the good fortune of meeting many, 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 many years ago. Former radio guy, big booming voice, real high quality individual. So Ron Arnst from Manitoba wants to know, Ray, the Winnipeg Jets need something. What is it? What do the Jets need?
My view on the Jets is they have gone as far as they can down the road with the group that they have.
Okay. You're talking the core here, like you're talking Scheifele, Wheeler.
Like I think they've
list,
tried working around the edges of the roster. They brought in a couple of defensemen last summer. They've got a terrific goalie. To me, it felt like the Jets would be pretty good this year. I thought they would be pretty good, and it just hasn't worked. And so there is a time when you're just at the end of the road. And so I do think you almost get to the point that the guys that aren't in play are Ehlers, Dubois, Connor, maybe and Hellebuck. Like maybe not many more than that. Like I'm talking about a complete reset that has to refresh the air around the Jets, because I think they could do it and be very effective doing it. But it seems like it's just gotten heavy and slow in Winnipeg.
Yeah. Well, and look, I'm glad you talk about this. It's almost like some think we shouldn't look at the possibility of a significant trade like Mark Scheifele being in play. Well, why not? Why shouldn't he be? I mean, we look at every other NHL team, and when things aren't going the way that they're designed to go, well, you change. And sometimes you have to make a real significant change. I'm not saying that Scheifele is going to get dealt. I think as an organization, you have to consider. And that's kind of the point that you're supporting here.
Yeah.
Whether it's Scheifele or somebody else.
Well, but the thing is, if you're going to, Scheifele brings you the most in return.
Yeah. He's
on a contract that teams would be very attracted to. And he's a very good player. So if that's the road you're looking at, I don't know how it can't be discussed.
Yeah. All right. From Douglas. How do the Philadelphia Flyers get back to being a playoff team? Not sure we have a long enough segment.
Well, I would say I hope you didn't watch the game the other night when they lost 9-2 to the Capitals. This is where my concern is with Philly. And I say concern, and Dregs, I want to make it clear, I have no concern. It's up to them. They can do whatever the hell they want. Yeah. I don't when someone says, "Hey, what worries you about, I don't know, Pittsburgh?" Nothing. Really. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Do whatever you want. But my concern in Philly is they don't think they're very far from being a very good team. And I look at them and I'm like, they don't have enough skill. They don't have enough speed. They're a ways away from being a good team, I think. And so, they never seem to embrace a rebuild there, and I didn't even like accumulate picks and assets. They don't seem to want to do that. And they've got some contracts there that are pretty expensive and going to carry a few years left on them. And you're going to have to work around those too. But I think they need more skill. They need to be faster. They need to identify. Like right now, they don't even, again, I mentioned this earlier. Can you identify what the Flyers are? I can't. What are they trying to be? Are they trying to be big, fast, slow, small? Identify something and start building an identity to your team. Minnesota's done that. You go to play Minnesota, you better have your big boy pants on, because they're going to play physically and they're going to forecheck and they're going to come with pace. Philly doesn't have that.
All right. Let's shift it over and have a bit more fun here. Instagram from Nicholas. If you could add any former Toronto Maple Leaf in their prime to the roster of the Maple Leafs in 2022, bracing for a playoff run, who would it be?
You go first, Dregs, here.
I knew you were going to do that. Okay. Automatically,
because I got two guys
I think of Wendell. Yeah. I just feel, Dougie Gilmour, man, in his prime, not that Toronto needs more skill, right? They've got that in abundance. I just think the character of Doug Gilmour, the bite in his game, everything that he brought in his prime, you can never have enough of. So my brain goes to Dougie Gilmour, and honorable mention to Wendell.
Okay, I got three, and they're one position each.
Interesting.
So,
okay. Didn't know we could do that. Yeah.
Up front, I think of Wendell. Yeah. Wendell, a healthy Wendell. Oh my gosh, man, what a playoff resume and build, and he'd be my forward. My defenseman would be Boreas Salmi, because Boreas Salmi at his best could do it all. He changes your team. But the guy they need most is Ed Belfour, I think. Because just think, you're a Jack Campbell injury away from an Eric Källgren, Michael Hutchison goaltending duo.
Yeah. Well, and so I should have been more crisp in answering that, because I don't know if you paid attention to the quiz on Tuesday. I'm guessing you did not.
No, Tuesday I was in Dallas. I did not do. When you try, this is how you don't pay attention. You tried to kick me in the shins for not listening to the quiz. I wasn't even on the broadcast, you knucklehead. I was in Dallas. Mike Johnson did the game.
I know.
You didn't even pay attention.
I know.
Studio
I just assumed that you would go to tsn.ca or Twitter and.
Oh no, I didn't do that. No.
It's Canada's favorite game show, according to James Duthie. So I just did wrong assumption. Anyway, the evil quizmaster asks, who is the most crucial forward in stepping up for the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? And automatically I'm like, well, I don't even want to answer it, because what does it matter? The most crucial player is Jack Campbell, right? Like, forward defense aside, if the goaltending isn't top notch, or at least average, healthy, then Toronto's going to have an issue. So I wasn't thinking that. That's a good question. That is an excellent question.
That's one of the better questions we've had. I'm going to rate them, and I'm going to put that one in our top.
Okay, so the last one, also from Instagram, the new voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs on TSN.
Sorry, Gord.
Bryan Mudryk. Yeah.
So Gord's out with COVID and feeling better, and hope you feel better, Gord. But Dregs has replaced you in 3 days.
I have. Well, Mudryk and Mike Johnson called the game on Tuesday, and it's Bryan Mudryk and Ray Ferraro tonight against the Washington Capitals as we record here on Thursday. Muddy is having some fun at your expense, but kind of not. Should I bring Ray scotch or wine to the game? Well, you're not going to drink scotch. You're going to have a CC if you're going to drink anything hard.
I'm not a scotch. It's whiskey.
Yeah.
It would be CC. But what he should bring is his wallet, so he could buy me one of each if he'd like.
Reminder to check out Ray and Dregs' social channels for Rapid Fire, presented by Kintec Footwear and Orthotics, keeping you active on your feet for life. A little bit later this week, we'll have another edition of Rapid Fire, so stay tuned for that. All right, you're continuing on the road. Very exciting week. Very exciting week. And you're eventually getting back home again, a bit of a reprieve. But our good friends at FootJoy sending us some wonderful products, right? Got the shipment of the shirts, the long sleeve tops, shoes. I mean,
nice. I assume I've got I'm hoping I've got a box there, Dregs, because I don't know. I have not.
Well, if you ever get home, perhaps you'll have a stack of them on your front step. But also exciting this week, and I haven't played yet. Not all of. The spring courses are opening. Maybe not the private clubs, but a lot of the public clubs. So I don't know that it's Easter weekend, and I don't know that I'm going to have time. Or I'm also a fair weather golfer, Ray. I am. I know that won't surprise you at all.
I am not like, let's put on double rain gloves and go play. No.
Same. I like 10 degrees Celsius is the breaking point for me.
Yeah.
If it's dead calm. Yeah, I'm sure I have too. But if there's wind and all the nonsense, I'm not good enough that I would enjoy it and challenge myself enough to fight the elements. I would just be, what the hell are we doing out here? So I'm going to give it another weekend, but I am.
Yeah, well, enjoy your Easter weekend. You? I'm going to get home on.
Are you getting home for Easter weekend?
Sunday morning, I'll get home, and so look forward to that. Just Leafs in Washington tonight, and then for ABC, I've got St. Louis, Minnesota on Saturday afternoon, which should be awesome.
Good times. Like we've talked a bit about Minnesota Wild. We'll post, but it feels like we need to have a conversation with Jacob Middleton. I love this guy, man.
Yeah.
He is just a perfect ad for the Wild. So, they're in that zone where all teams are. Frankly, I was surprised that Jonathan Huberdeau was available to us earlier in the week just because the playoffs.
He was awesome, too.
But we'll put in a request. And he was terrific, right? Yeah. And how about the goal he scored? Was it Monday night?
Yeah, when he just kind of Tuesday, he just hung on,
yeah.
and I'll just throw it up here.
Yeah. All right, so plenty to look forward to in episode 30. Ray, thank you, and
happy Easter, everybody. Thank you. Happy Easter, everyone. Thanks for listening. Be well, and we'll talk to you next week.
Huge shout out to our partners who make the podcast possible every week by our title sponsor, our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, "Are you over beer?" Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. By Kintec Footwear and Orthotics. Book a consultation at kintec.net. By Boston Pizza. Pick it up, get it delivered to your door. Let Boston Pizza do the cooking tonight. And by Doer, use code RND and you will save 15% off pants at doer.ca. Thanks for listening and watching episode 29, everybody. Be well, enjoy the weekend, and look forward to episode 30 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast.